all of that information that we're getting from the property managers, from the ads, the photographs, who's in charge, what the phone numbers are, what they're asking for negotiated rents, is ultimately flowing through into CoStar.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. This is episode number 68. Weekly, we share interviews with real estate experts, passing on their experience and knowledge. Thanks for joining us this week. My name is J. Darren Gross. We're so glad you're here. In just a minute, we're going to speak with Chris Beck. Chris is a former commercial real estate broker and a current representative with CoStar. In today's episode, Chris shows us how market data is available through companies like CoStar and how it can improve your effectiveness and your results and however you participate in commercial real estate. The possibilities are limitless, and it's incredibly easy to access data that can help educate a buyer before entering into an offer, a vendor with a special offer for a particular type of property, or even an owner just looking to keep up with peer properties. If you have not used big data to zero in on an opportunity, listen up and prepare to be amazed at how the information that's available to you can be used. And also be sure to check out in the show notes, there's a link, a special offer. Go ahead and click the link and you can find learn the 10 reasons why to choose CoStar and how to get a free demo and learn how big data can help you in your commercial real estate endeavors. If this is your first time tuning in, we want to welcome you. If you're a returning guest, thanks for coming back. You can help us grow the audience by subscribing to the program. It's really, really easy if you haven't done it yet. Whether you're a fan of iTunes or Stitcher, we're on both. You just go to iTunes or Stitcher, whichever you prefer, and type in the search bar, Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. When you hit search, you'll see our logo pop up. It's the headphones with CREPN between the ears. Go ahead and click subscribe, and you're done. Then when any new episode's posted, all you have to do is click download, and shazam, you're listening to another episode of the show. My personal favorite place or places to listen are either while I'm driving the car or if I'm out on a bike ride or even when I take the dog for the walk. When you subscribe, if you can, leave a comment and a rating. That would be a big help. This all helps us when we're trying to attract guests. The kind of measuring stick for podcast and its reach is the number of subscribers. So if you would, that'd be great. A little bit about myself. I am a real estate investor and a commercial property insurance broker. I've been an insurance broker for over 25 years. My primary clients are real estate professionals dealing in multifamily, retail, warehouse, office, and development. I'm also a real estate investor myself, and I have been for over 20 years. And because of these two things, I'm always looking for more information about real estate, whether it be to use in my own investing or so that I can better support my clients. And our goal here is to learn and share with you information that you can use in your own real estate business. And that's how Commercial Real Estate Pro Network and CREPN Radio came about. The easiest way to reach me, if you'd like, you can hit you can go to the website, it's commercialrealestatepronetwork.com, all spelled out. And there's a contact button. Go ahead and hit that. And there's a phone number and an email. And go ahead and reach out to me, and I will gladly reach back out to you. Whether you want to talk about a specific deal or just connect, or if you have some sort of an insurance question. I know insurance is something that most people would rather not talk about. Trust me, I know this firsthand. But it's a necessary part of most real estate transactions. And just to share with you a recent thing I ran into here, insurance is not the easiest thing to understand. The basic premise is is pay and hope you don't have to use it. Otherwise, it'll cost more than it did last time. And something that I've seen, and I want to make sure if you're in the market, you're looking for real estate, that you are aware of just a real brief thing here that can help you when you're looking for a property. Because insurance companies are very concerned with the age of properties and the updates to four basic things. In fact, I think I've seen it in some states. They even call it a 4-point inspection. But it's true with whether you're buying a single family, if you're buying multifamily, if you're buying a warehouse. The insurance companies want to know that the property's been well cared for. And the four things they look to see are roof, electrical, plumbing, and the heating and cooling systems. And if you're buying a Class C property, which by nature is something older than 20 years, and there's no record of updates to these systems, you're not gonna get the best rate you can. So when you're out doing your search for a property, if you find something that's older than, especially if it's older than 30 years, you want to make certain you ask this so that you can provide these answers when you're looking for your insurance. It'll help you tremendously. And what you need is basically the year that the redo was done. So whether a new roof was put on or new heating and cooling system was put in, new plumbing, new electrical, it's all good when you know that. So if you find yourself, if you're looking at a property and you have a question and you just want a second opinion, please reach out to me. I'll do all I can to help you. And, whether you want a quote or you just want to get a second opinion, I'm easy either way. All right. One last thing before we jump into the show here. If you're on LinkedIn, check out our group. We've got a group on LinkedIn. It's called Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. It's a great place to network with commercial real estate professionals. All right, let's get on with the show. On the line with me today, we're fortunate to have Chris Beck. Chris is a representative with CoStar. He's also a former commercial real estate broker. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hey, Darren. I really appreciate the opportunity. I hope you're doing well.
I am. I hope you are as well.
Thanks.
Chris is as I mentioned, a representative with CoStar, and we're going to get into the topic of big data and how it's changed, how it's transformed the sales process with respects to when you have access to big data, and how if you're in commercial real estate, whether you're buying or you're a broker or you have some sort of service to sell to owners of commercial real estate, you can use it. But before we do that, Chris, if you could share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you got to be at CoStar.
Yeah, sure. So I was a commercial real estate broker for 8 years in the state of California, and started off in a sales position down there. I had transferred from actually the stock brokerage industry into a different sales, got my license. And my partner at the time, who was not my partner but a boss, had encouraged me to get my broker's license, but he was also a gentleman in a wheelchair and needed some additional help in terms of showing properties, et cetera. So it was a great way for me to get into the business and kind of learn the market that I was in, which was in the Central Valley. Over the course of time, he encouraged me to get my broker's license, and I went ahead and did that. And then ultimately, he allowed me to purchase part of the company. So I was one of the brokers involved and one of the owners of a boutique firm by which we did sales, leasing, some land development in and around the area, representing tenants and buyers and sellers. That lasted 8 or 9 years until the proverbial crash of the real estate market back in 2008. And in the Central Valley, where I was from at the time, it hit particularly hard as that was ground zero for a lot of the housing woes that took the market down with regards to valuations, the loans that were going bad, the banks that were allowing these people to sign a piece of paper to get a large loan on a home, the accelerated prices, et cetera. I scrapped and saved and tried to make it as long as I could, and ultimately I was not able to go ahead and survive as my powder was dried up. And gentleman I went to college with brought me up to this beautiful state of Oregon, where he asked me to be his real estate guy. He owned 35 retail locations between Oregon and Washington, and I was more than happy to start receiving a paycheck again. So I came up and worked there for 2 years until that company was sold, and I found myself without a job. An Idaho outfit bought the company, and they did not need a corporate real estate guy, as they already had one. And at that point, my former CoStar rep decided and found out that I was looking for something and recruited me for the job. So that's how I got to where I am.
Got it. Well, a lot of commercial real estate in your background, and I'm just curious. You mentioned the infamous the cliff that everybody fell off of, and prior to that, what you mentioned you were doing development. Was it or in all aspects? Was it anything commercial? All things commercial?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. For clarification purposes, my firm was commercial only. I did no residential at all. The only residential footprint that we had was moving land from one owner. In that case, it typically was an agricultural usage to a developer of single family, and they would then go ahead and get the land entitled. We would help out with those causes with the city, get the appropriate zoning, the units per acre, and go ahead and record the map, make the property more valuable. It obviously was done on the developer's dime, but we would assist along that way. Got it.
And you mentioned that before you came to CoStar, you had a CoStar rep, so I'm assuming you were using CoStar as a broker?
Yes, sir. That's a fair assumption. I was using CoStar in my practice for those 8 years, both CoStar and Loopnet, which is a different side of the coin of the CoStar family of companies. And I've been with CoStar on this side, selling, servicing, training, etc. I call it discipling, if you will, for 3 years as of last month.
Got it. Well, let's get into a little bit about data. And I think that your perspective from both being on the outside using the product and data, and also now being on the inside, will be a kind of a unique perspective. When you were using it on the outside, was it primarily for searching, or can you tell us a little bit about how you were using it before you or when you were a broker?
Yeah, of course. Lots of different ways to use data, and I can go back and think of a couple different scenarios. One scenario which brokers love to have is an order. So a prospect might come to someone and say, "Hey, I've got some trade money. I'm coming out of an opportunity to sell a piece of property, and I need something to replace that to obviously do the 1031 deferred exchange." That's a nice order to get. You can utilize the system to find properties, determine potentially how they're operating, who the ownership is, etc. So certainly identifying a list of opportunities by which to put before the prospect, by which I can earn obviously a gross fee ultimately to help do the next deal down the road. Prospecting. I would use the system to go ahead and prospect to find people who potentially were sellers. I would find properties that may be under leased, have vacancies. Maybe it's an owner-represented property that's a FSBO or for a lease by owner. To call them and ask if they had the opportunity to talk to a professional, explain who I am, earn their trust, potentially get the listing and get some tenants in there on their behalf. As a broker, one of the responsibilities we have as a fiduciary on behalf of our clients is to know and understand the market to the best of our ability. We are hired as professionals to understand what's going on around us, how the economy is working with regards to CRE, how the tenants are working, what the vacancy rates are, occupancy, what the rents are, what the common pass-throughs are for CAMs being the age of the building, what the growth rates are. Do we see population growing? Do we see the cost of money increasing with loans? All of these different bits and pieces of information, people really turn to their brokers, their professionals, their experts to give them a guidance and help them understand some of the directions and some of the pitfalls along the way in order to make their next move. So that big data, that CoStar is how I used it. It's how I also sell it now, making sure that people understand that, trends, opportunities, who's buying what, who's selling what, understanding where the money is going, how it got there, are all really important things in terms of being an expert in your market.
Beyond the physical characteristics, address, square footage, year built, kind of thing, how deep, what is the power of the data? Is there length of ownership? Is there, you mentioned vacancies, what, share with us a little bit more about the
Sure.
data.
Sure. So in terms of big data, it doesn't get a whole lot bigger than the company that I have the pleasure of working with, CoStar. We're the second largest research company conglomerate in the nation, second only behind the Census Bureau, U.S. Census Bureau. And we pride ourselves on researching and gathering information over the course of time, which ultimately comes into the system that we're able to utilize. We've grown through interviews of the brokers, understanding what's going on with the market, understanding what their listings are, who's backfilling those listings and on a tenant basis, how long the property has potentially been empty, the pain of the property, how long it's been on the market. It's certainly something that could be taken advantage of, quote unquote, on a buy side. If it's been on the market a long time, it potentially could be overpriced. It could potentially have some, quote, hair on it, which means that there might be a value add opportunity there. There are lots of things that we can go ahead and utilize that data for, and understanding how the market is moving around us. And we've gathered it for almost 30 years. 1987 is when the company started, so we'll be celebrating the 30th birthday next year. And CoStar has grown through acquisition. So over the course of time, they've made strategic purchases of companies and other types of conglomerates and data purchases to bring it in. So on the sales comp side, we may have purchased a number of different businesses in geographical locations and ultimately brought that data into the system. And the older CoStar is, the better the data is going to continually get, because we've got a potentially we call it a no miss a property policy, which means we would like to have every piece of brick and mortar into the system in terms of all aspects of commercial real estate. Office, retail, industrial, specialty, hospitality, land in transition, religious facilities, and the list goes on and on and on. And obviously, chasing big data it's an insatiable appetite, because you can never get enough of it, but it will never be, obviously perfect, because we're chasing things in arrears. But we've also gone as far as to go ahead and acquire a small airplane as of last year. CoStar, it's a low-flying, low-speed plane. It's got a camera on the bottom of it. We're flying 80 different municipalities around the nation, trying to uncover future commercial real estate properties, those properties that are proposed. Dirt may be moving. Sites are being cleared. That might be a proposed property, or properties that are, quote, under construction, where a foundation's been poured. We've identified it through the airplane. It triangulates back to our group of researchers in our research hub on the East Coast. They go out to the public records, find out what the permits have been pulled, what the product is that's coming out of the ground, how many units or square feet, who the owner is, who the property manager is, get some photographs or some artistic renderings into the system. So we've almost skipped over the past data, which is it's crucial to anyone's business in making recommendations. And now we've leapfrogged actually into the future, where we're able to look at the trends and the supply and the demand of new product coming online as well, which has been a phenomenal leapfrog for us over the past 2 years, for sure.
That's incredible. I didn't realize the dedication that I had halfway assumed that it was kind of a Google Earth, representation you guys were relying on there. So you got 80 cities that you're flying over.
We've got 80 municipalities, and we're trying to fly over those somewhere between 3 and 4 times a year, and we're trying to do about a 100-mile radius and understanding what the properties are that are being developed. And unfortunately, here in Portland, we had a hiccup, obviously, last winter with the rain, and then this summer in August when I was supposed to go up, we had a marine layer come in, and the fog was too low, and we couldn't get up. However, the next 2 days, the airplane did go. So it is weather dependent. We've got a full-time pilot and a full-time researcher in the plane. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of the researchers is we have 1,800 researchers outside of that that are making phone calls to the brokers, to the owners, to the developers, to the tenants, trying to understand where people are moving to and from, how much they're paying, how long the property's been on the market, interviewing to get some questions as to how long the property's been around in existence, the date of delivery, and it goes on and on and on. We make north of 55,000 research phone calls per day.
Wow. So I guess the sum of that is the data is as current as possible, because that was kind of one of my thoughts as we're sitting here talking, or I'm talking, or you're talking, I'm listening, about just the volume of data for anybody that's ever tried to create a database and keep it current, especially a dynamic database like sales and that's pretty impressive. How?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Staying on top of it, that's a really good point, because even though you think you may have your customized database as current as possible, the next question is maintenance on that, the type of hours and efficiencies that you would have to put into place to go ahead and make the calls, understand what's happening within the market, who's going to call you and tell you what's going on, how is it that you're going to find out if one of your clients has made an acquisition outside of you. It's really a daunting task, and that's one of the reasons that we're able to go ahead and represent and get CoStar into the people that use it, because we eliminate that as a need to do in-house.
When all of the data is collected and represented in the form, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you sign up for the service, you can sign up on like a metro area. Is that right? Or
yeah. So what CoStar has done over the course of time is they've basically split up the country, different markets into geographical footprints, and each of those footprints around is an option for a quote market. We have the ability I obviously represent the Portland market, which is 13 counties north of Longview down to south of Eugene and out to Bend. It's one of the most generous in terms of geographical square miles and area that CoStar has to offer. But we'll have markets across the nation, and depending on if a broker would like to add a market, we certainly could talk about that and give them access to that market. We have the ability to take care of all the markets. We can go ahead and do nationwide data as well. It's just a matter of what it is. It's basically a grocery list. If we were to find out that someone were potentially interested in talking about that, we would want to understand what their needs are, provide them the answers to those questions, not more, not less, and then come up with a strategic plan and price based on, obviously, the territories that they would want to have access to.
Chris, you mentioned the relationship between CoStar and Loopnet, and I believe there's some other affiliate companies. Can you explain the relationship there, and is there any benefit to the users of the system having that relationship?
Sure. So it's kind of a long roundabout answer, but obviously CoStar would purchase those companies that would not only answer a need for the marketplace, but also enhance the data by which they're collecting from. So 4 years ago, we made the acquisition of Loopnet. And Loopnet is basically, in very generic terms, it's a listing service where brokers and owners can pay to have their listings exposed to a vast audience of public, Johnny Q public, that's looking for an investment or a place to lease, etc. And we have north of 5.5 million people coming through on a monthly basis looking for properties. When those folk identify what it is they're looking for, and 76% of the people coming into LoopNet are indeed investors and tenants, which means a broker would potentially get two sides of the deal when they pick up the phone and answer the call of someone interested off of LoopNet. It's a great way of doing things quickly, more directly with the end buyer, and getting it advertised. We bought LoopNet as a result of we needed a public forum because CoStar is not a public forum. CoStar is a fraternity. It is a subscription, whereas certain people who subscribe, those involved with CRE, commercial real estate, banking, owners, property managers, whatever the case happens to be, vendors, would like to have access to the database. So we have a public portal and we have the private portal. On the acquisition of apartments.com, which happened 2.5 years ago, we made that acquisition with the understanding that multifamily was going to go ahead and really ignite in terms of a nationwide boom of what was going to be happening. And we've seen it here in the Pacific Northwest. It's gone crazy. Values, rents, staying on top of all that information. That, too, is a listing portal. It's an advertising base by which property managers and owners have the ability to list their properties online so that the renters, those looking for apartments, have the ability to find what it is they're looking for within the search area based on their budget, looking for the amenities. They can walk through the photographs and the 3D renderings that we have on the site, which is all great, and it creates true leads for the property managers, and ultimately they lease up their properties. The side effect of that acquisition is all of that information that we're getting from the property managers, from the ads, the photographs, who's in charge, what the phone numbers are, what they're asking for negotiated rents, is ultimately flowing through into CoStar. And so our multifamily data set in CoStar is through the roof. It's obviously big data, who owns what, who are the property managers that control how many units, what the valuations are on a per unit basis, not only on a rent side, but potentially on the acquisition side. What have things sold for? Looking for performance, understanding what you potentially could get for a multifamily property. And as we've beefed up that multifamily section of CoStar, it ultimately will follow into other areas as well. So most multifamily that's being built these days is what we call mixed use. That mixed use might have a retail or office portion in the lower section of the apartment complex, or some sort of community-based public access. That is obviously where the commercial side comes in again, and now we're bringing in that information, and it just begins to have a feeding frenzy as to how it all associates together. And we're bringing that information in as quickly as possible. So the answer is yes, we do bring that information into CoStar. We look at the listings on LoopNet. We'll call and verify those listings with the brokers, with the owners trying to sell or lease the properties. And once we've done that, because that's our research department, which is vetting out the information, interviewing, making sure it's correct before it's uploaded into CoStar as a potential listing, with the contact information, photographs, marketing brochures, etc., that we've gathered either from the broker through the interview and or through LoopNet.
That's a lot of moving parts there. That's pretty cool to be able to cross-pollinate all that. I know in many times I've tried to merge what appear to be common data fields, only to find out that one's got the first name and the last name in the same field, and the other one's got the everything separated and maybe a middle initial or something like that. So that's, I'm guessing that's a pretty arduous task to keep all that. Unless maybe all the fields are already matched, but I would think that's a pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, and it has been quite a chore for us to try and match the back ends of the LoopNet and the CoStar data fields to that effect. But we still have research calling on all those LoopNet listings. Ultimately, we've understood in the next 3 or 4 months it should be a seamless transition, so that when a broker decides to put his or her listing onto LoopNet, it will ultimately flow into CoStar. That's one of the great things about our big data services. We don't have to force you to be a subscriber to get your listing information into CoStar. We welcome that. We welcome the phone call, the communication from folks that have these opportunities out there for sale or for lease, but they don't know where to put it. We welcome you to call us. We welcome you to call research. Let us know of those listings. We will put them in the system for free, because we're trying to deliver accurate and complete information back to the subscriber base. It also allows us to go, we have field researchers. So in addition to the airplane and the researchers that are making those 50-some-odd thousand phone calls every day, we have field researchers that are in Apartments.com branded little Prius fleets across the nation, and they're scraping, photographing, uncovering opportunities in terms of for sale, for lease, by owner, that may not be in the system, making the calls on that, vetting out the information. How many square feet do you have? Do you have a brochure that you can send us? And we're bringing that information into CoStar as well. So just as a quick comparison, I've noticed here in the market that LoopNet, although it's a fantastic listing service, it's a great way to get your property seen by the people looking for them, CoStar is going to provide upwards of 60% more listings than LoopNet does on a comparison basis. And that's because we're proactively going out and communicating with the brokers and the owners and establishing that relationship and continuing to have people communicate through us for this portal of information.
Wow, 60%, that's big. Let me ask you this. So you mentioned you guys cover all the different asset classes. With respects to commercial. Is there a bottom or a floor as far as the size or the scope of the property? Is there, I know like in some things I've seen, like they have a minimum of like 50 units for like multifamily.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple of clarifying definitions for you there. We will track land listings for sale and land comps as long as it's on the commercial side. If it's a land listing that's going out to the public in CoStar that a single-family residential broker or developer decides to buy, we'll go ahead and have that comp in the system, but we will stop following it the moment he starts to put on single-family residence. We don't have any single-family data in CoStar with the exception of a potential land comp or land for sale that may work that way. We don't do a lot with condo sales with regards to some of these multifamily properties that may have switched over to condo. That's kind of in that gray area of single-family residence. As for definitions of the sweet spot, we ultimately continue to compress down in the number of units that we're following through research. Obviously, the big monsters out there, the 300-unit complexes, are fairly easy to find. They're typically going to be advertising. They're well-placed in terms of what the market is and their towers, et cetera. So we're going to have great coverage on a lot of those larger communities. Where it starts to get a little spotty is when it gets down into the mom-and-pop type stuff, which is going to be your 5 to 10-unit complexes. Ultimately, our goal is to have complete coverage of anything 5 units and higher on the multifamily basis, because that falls into a different segment of financing. Single-family residence financing, we can go 1 to 4 units through the lenders out there. And so we don't follow anything under 4 units. So 5 units and higher would be the answer to that question.
Got it. And then what about like just a straight single tenant commercial space? Is there any minimum on?
No, sir. No, sir. Our goal is to bring back everything, be it a owner-occupied building, to a multi-tenant retail space, to a church. I think I mentioned that before. A golf course, hotels. You'd be surprised what we track in CoStar. And we're not going to have a lot of golf courses because there's not a lot of golf courses on the market or for sale. But what we will have is we'll have those comps from time to time as they come in. I know that there have been some folk that have tried to utilize this for mobile home parks, for instance, and we do have some. We don't have great coverage in mobile homes. They just don't trade that often. But we try and cover everything, brick and mortar, certainly downtown, the multifamily owners of parking garages, developers, who occupies the space, who the owner is, who the LLC is involved, what other assets they own, when they bought it, what they bought it for, contact information, and the list goes on and on and on.
Without naming anybody,
sure.
Is there any kind of a unique story you can tell that how one of your customers or somebody's used it to, make a sale or make a connection? Or
yeah, I've got a couple different stories I can tell you. The first story is that I went ahead and met with and represented with a lady here in Portland who's a single producer. She was probably in her upper 50s, maybe south 60s in terms of age. Very smart, very keen, not necessarily a technology person. But it took me 4 or 5 meetings. Once she decided to come on board, it took me 4 or 5 trainings with her. And as I continue to check in with her, I can report back that she is still a customer. And the last time I spoke with her a few months ago, the answer was, her comments were, I don't know why I didn't do this before. I'm having success. I'm finding what I need. She's able to go ahead and have the educated call, save time on efficiency. And this is kind of that, quote, old dog, new trick scenario where she had been set in her ways and we introduced something new to her and she was able to go ahead and capitalize on it. I have a personal story in that I came up with, we had a piece of property in California that was, it had gone, the LLC that owned it had gone belly up and they were out trying to sell it on a reduced cost basis, but it was a giant piece of property with 100 acres and potentially 1 million square feet and multiple buildings and ages and the rest of it all. And CoStar was my research tool. So I was able to go in there and determine the types of properties that had sold, that I did some pretty aggressive Excel work, came up with multiple valuations on the multiple ages and sizes and building types and construction types of the property. And ultimately, we were able to go ahead and come up with a great listing presentation to the owner. We indeed got that, and we sold the property, and it was for a tremendous amount of money. Everybody was happy, buyer, seller, and certainly us, multiple tens of millions of dollars that went through. So it is a tool by which if you were to go ahead and invest your time into, the way I teach and train it is that you may not necessarily go ahead and get the gross right away from it because it's not a magic pill. However, having access to the data and being able to manage and maneuver as a result of what you're seeing allows you to get through the sales process faster. Understanding who the players are, understanding who the decision makers are. And once you can understand the roadmap or at least start investigating what that data is, where do you think it's going to lead, you can find the different pieces along the way through big data, in this case CoStar, to understand where those calls need to be made, to understand who the right people are to talk to understand the other aspects of their portfolio that you may be dealing with. A lot of times brokers don't even know what they're dealing with. It might be a one-off. They think it's a one-off scenario where they're trying to sell one piece of property, but the seller hasn't gone ahead and told them that they may have 6 or 7 buildings behind the scenes. And this is one of those research things where it's important for people to realize who they're talking to, what are their risk tolerances, what have they done, what does their experience look like. And you become, I think, a better professional, obviously playing your fiduciary responsibility card with that, with them, and I think you can just do a better job. So those are a couple success stories. I gave you a big one. I gave you a small one. I've heard some other great stories of people finding opportunities. I had a gentleman on the multifamily side. I had asked him why he wasn't doing multifamily, and this was 6-8 months ago. And he said it's taking a lot of time, and yes, he had done it before, and I reminded him of this hot market, and there was opportunities out there. And he said, yes, there is an opportunity. And I said, well, let's work on an exercise together. And he had a piece of property that he thought potentially could move. It was not listed. It was in the system because we like to have full documentation of all properties out there. We had the owner. He confirmed who the owner was. We had the unit counts correct. We had the rents in the system. And we started working on that. After we uncovered what those rents were that were in the system, he went to said owner and let him know that, that we potentially would be interested in taking this property off your hands. Off market, was not for sale. And he said, I would entertain that. He was an aged gentleman. He was tired of self-managing the property. He went ahead and let this broker know that he believed the property was under-rented by the tune of about $75 a unit. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but if you go ahead and net that out on an NOI basis over, I think there were 38 or 42 units in this particular complex, you can see where this is going. You can get a lot of income in a hurry. We uncovered through CoStar that the property was probably under-rented to the tune of about $140 to $150 a unit. All of a sudden now the numbers are fairly significant. They came in, they went ahead and had a strike price. This broker had a buyer that was coming out of a trade. He knew what the money was, went ahead and got the deal done. The gentleman who sold the property sold it at a fair price based on what he wanted. The owner that came in knew what he wanted to do with it as a value add, and probably, although it was unrealized, turned that value somewhere to the tune of $500,000 or $600,000 the day after he bought it, based on the fact of he could raise the rents ultimately and bring it back to market. That's a huge success story based on the fact that there were 3 successful parties involved. We had a buyer, we had a seller, and we had a broker. And without the use of CoStar and big data, that deal just wouldn't have happened, and it was off market.
No, I love that. I mean, that, like you said, that's the willing seller, the willing buyer, and the broker that's able to bring it to the seller and make the buyer and the seller happy. And like I said, you have three happy people there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So obviously, real estate brokers are an ideal candidate for your product or service. Mm-hmm. I know I'm using it myself as an insurance agent. Are there any? Is there a ideal, or is there somebody that you can also recommend that should consider looking at it, or is there a finite list, or is it infinite?
I would say it's not infinite. Of course, you're going to have a large segment of professionals out there that are interested in CRE data. So that's going to eliminate some of the infiniteness, if you will. But on the finite end users, yes, of course, you would be called a vendor. Vendor just means someone who's looking for access to the commercial businesses, commercial tenants, commercial buildings, owners, whatever the case is, window washers, insurance guys, commercial painters, janitors, landscapers, whatever that vertical is. If you are servicing commercial, that it would be a great place to go ahead and be able to delve in, prospect, pick up the phone and talk to property managers, banks, developers, owners, tenants. Once again, whatever it is you're looking for, I'm sure we would be able to get you on that path. Brokers is, of course, our largest vertical. Last year, I think 86% of all the deals across the nation that were done in commercial included CoStar in some aspect. So we've got a great coverage when it comes to the brokerage community. Some of the other verticals, of course, that we represent and try and work with would be the ownership groups, the developers that need to mitigate risk, talk about what things might perform at, understand what the market is doing, where we came from, potentially where we're going. Lenders are particularly interested in it, understanding what those sales comps are, who lent on what. We have deed and loan information in the system, when they bought the property. If a loan is expiring soon, they could potentially prospect out of that to go ahead and get additional loans, at least servicing sales. Same thing for banks. They like to use it for their annual reviews. Most of the banks are highly regulated now with the feds, and the feds typically mandate once a year updates in terms of valuations to make sure that their ratios are in place. CoStar is obviously a fantastic tool by which to do that. We may step on an appraiser's toe once or twice there, but if they can bring it in-house, they could potentially save themselves some money and have aspects and access to the different markets. Appraisers certainly interested, tax appeal, professionals. We've got the county assessors using it. I work with the cities. I work with EDCs that need to have aspects of what parts of the communities are growing, who's building what, where, what tenants might be moving, how can I attract them to my county, my city. Basically anyone who needs that aspect, private financiers that are looking for hard money loans, that might be an aspect to it. The data doesn't just stop at the brick and mortar and the tenants and the owners. We also have a list of the CRE players in marketplaces. So we'll have an inventory, a Rolodex, if you will, of the commercial brokers, what they represent, the deals that they've done, their pictures, their phone numbers, their email addresses, what they sold things for, what their vertical is that they specialize in. I teach people, potentially recruiting tools out of it, how to find the right broker that you may want to go ahead and take and move away from one firm to another, because that's the hole you need to fill. Understanding who the right person is to talk to with regards to a special piece of property that you're looking to acquire. Maybe there's someone out there that's done 3 or 4 of those deals in the past 2 years. We have the ability to find that out. And so people that need access to the data of who the professionals are might have interest in that. I heard a story of a group, I think it was Newport Beach Porsche, actually bought a subscription to CoStar, and what they did with it was they went ahead and marketed to the brokers that had a huge windfall sale. And so what they would do is they would go ahead and realize that this person just made a large sum of money on a sale that they closed. Right now it's about the right time to go ahead and prospect them to potentially sell them a new Porsche.
Oh, that's funny.
That's very creative in terms of access and gathering that information and knowing exactly what it is that you want to have reported back to you. That's a very creative way that someone outside the box went ahead and utilized CoStar. So, yeah, the imagination, I think, is what can hold you back. My colleagues working with some roofers, a couple of the restoration firms here in town. So, yeah, it goes on and on and on.
Got it. And you mentioned numerous different companies, and as far as the territory that CoStar is operating in, can you go ahead and let our listeners know that?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, we've been around for 29 years. It'll be 30 years next year. We went ahead and started in Washington, D.C. back in 1987 when there was a need that was identified by our still current CEO, who determined that there was no one disseminating information between brokers. No one said, this is my listing and I don't know how to get it out there other than the sign. So there were interview processes, and he would have a newsletter, and he would put it out in snail mail, U.S. mail, put a stamp on it to a subscription base talking about those needs and wants and other items within the Washington, D.C. area. And that has grown, and obviously here we are. It's now SaaS-based, Internet-based, through your laptop computer, access to the market. And I just forgot the question. It was a good question, though.
I was asking you, where all is CoStar? I know North America, but you'd mentioned
Yes. Okay, sorry. So as we've continued to grow over the course of time with the acquisitions of these companies, 2 years ago we actually finally went over the border into Canada. We started off in eastern Canada and we worked our way west. So now all the provinces are represented. We continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. The municipalities are coming online to get us some comp information as well. We've opened in the UK. We're on the ground, on the streets there. Good coverage. We have bought a few companies. My understanding is one in Portugal and one in Spain. And then I believe that there was another comp company of some sort that was acquired in Germany. So we continue to go ahead and grow into Eastern Europe. We have coverage in Hawaii and Alaska as well. I don't see why we wouldn't be heading over to Asia at some point, although I don't know of any offices there now, but we continue to grow. We've been on Forbes' fastest growing companies and Fortune's top 100 as of this year. So we're very excited about that as well. We just continue to grow up to 3,800 employees.
Well, it's exciting to be in something that's going forward and kind of on the cutting edge of technology and just a really powerful resource. I'm running down my list of things that I was hoping to cover, and you've been just a wealth of information on all this, and I'm sure the listeners will appreciate this. Chris, is there anything we didn't touch on that you had wished that we would have?
No, I think that there are some times that people are anxious or nervous about picking up the phone and inquiring as to what it's all about. We have a responsibility to educate those people that call that are interested, that might not even be to the prospect level yet. But we love to teach and train. Obviously, if you don't know and you don't see what's out there, you won't know how to take advantage of it. And so I would just encourage people, large, small, whatever the case is, to reach out for a demo in whatever market you're in. I could certainly help you out, point you in the right direction, or educate you myself. We try and be available. We've got a trainer in our office locally, so we're able to, and it's all he does. He does not sell. He does not do anything but go out and make sure that the people are identifying and finding what they need to in CoStar. Customer service is a huge push for us right now. I'm happy to go ahead and be on board with that. And I would just, encourage people to learn more about their business. They have a responsibility to their clients. They have a responsibility to their prospects to understand the market the best they can. And if there is one-stop shopping that's going to help educate them better than any other platform out there, I certainly would encourage them to pick up the phone and take a listen.
And why don't you give us your contact information so the listeners know how, and I'll go ahead and include this in the show notes here so anybody is driving or whatever, they can click on and get in touch with you.
No, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. My name again is Chris Beck, B-E-C-K. My contact information email is cbeck@costar.com, COSTAR.com. And my cell phone number is 503-956-4021.
All right. Hey, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and we will be in touch soon.
Darren, I appreciate it. I apologize if I was long-winded. Sometimes it gets me going, and I don't know when to stop. So I appreciate your time and interest, and I hope you have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, pal.
I hope you enjoyed that. I know big data is more than just a bunch of numbers and letters. When you know what you're looking for, using a source of data makes it very, very easy to be successful. You can eliminate all the wasted time of chasing things that aren't opportunities and really focus your efforts to find exactly that which is a prospective opportunity for you. So if, for example, if you're looking for properties that are between 40 and 50 units, in Cincinnati, Ohio, that were built between 1980 and 1987 with an owner who's owned the property for more than 20 years, well, you can find them. And you need the data and probably need a service, something like CoStar, that can help you out there. So check it out. Be sure to check out the link there in the show notes for that download of the 10 reasons why CoStar can help you, and then also for a free demo. That's all we've got for today. We know you're busy. We thank you for making time for us today. We do appreciate you. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.